Jason,
Andrew?
are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, here we go. All good?
Yep.
Here we go. Sorry.
That's staying.
It's, all right, fair enough. Well, it's Two For Chirping, and we've got Jason Payne, the head coach of the Cyclones, back on for the first time since the summer. Coach Payne, how are you doing? Something tells me you're just in a fantastic mood.
Oh, yeah, I'm in a great mood today, I'll tell you. After that game last night, I don't know if I have a voice left, but yeah.
Well, the thing is, we pre-schedule these, so I had talked to you about it like a week or so ago, and you can't control what happens. This is going to air about a week and a half from now, something like that, like February 10th, 11th, somewhere around that time. You guys will find out when you see it. But yeah, we're recording it the day after that game against Kansas City. I don't know how much you want to talk about it. These fans in Cincinnati really do not like Kansas City now. Two unfortunate losses in the same week.
Yeah, you know what, but there's one similarity. Referees messed it up for Cincinnati.
You're going there on the Tell All podcast.
I went there, yeah, I did.
How far do you want to go?
Oh, you can go deep.
Okay. Kind of creep me out here right now for a second. Yeah, apparently you had to be contained by a couple of our great assistants. Neeler and Dino are the names I heard downstairs. Is it good that you had those guys there?
Oh, definitely good, because I probably would have torn the building apart brick by brick to get to the referees.
Oh my gosh. This was, yeah, you were, what sucks is like I didn't even see it up there. So like I see the players watching them exit from the Zamboni tunnel. So like, did you go down the players tunnel and then you were trying to make a beeline?
Correct.
Okay. I thought, because I was going to say, I'm like, he didn't like get on the ice and start just like waddling over there, did he?
Not a chance.
How far did you get before you were stopped?
But pretty much at the visiting team's dressing room.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and it was close.
When is the last time you have been this mad? Hockey related, I should say.
When I was a player. And
Not bad.
Yeah.
So worse than anything from last season. Playoff loss, 6-0 home opener loss, 4-0 loss.
Close to that mad was our Game 6 loss.
Okay. But this was worse.
This was worse.
Wow. All right, so you say back to being a player, like when is there a moment that you can isolate in your mind right now that you can think of that just you were going berserk?
Yeah, incident happened on the ice, and I think it was, something was said to me, and I think a complete loss, like switch went off and that's it. And I was doing everything I could to get to the player. And I had referees holding me back. I had players holding me back. I even had my coach trying to hold me back. And yeah, and they didn't have much success. But
So did you get to the player?
just about, and then I came to reality. I'm like, you know what? It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I was able to reel myself back in, but that whole time building up to it was a whole other level.
There's something to be said when you have adrenaline pumping for like literally having a blackout moment, right? Like where you just are not, and we see it sometimes with our guys. I mean, I think of situations where some of our players have taken some, penalties that in the long run, did you need to take them? No. But there is something to be said for that, right? Like all of a sudden you can lose control. And I mean, you had the wherewithal, as you're referencing back to being a player, to turn that switch back to, I guess, neutral. But not everybody has that.
No, it's definitely hard. For sure it's hard. Everyone's human, put it that way. And, for me, I like to keep in control. And again, when you lose control of your emotions, you lose control of everything else. And that's the one thing at least you can control. But in a situation like this, it's not just the fact of why I got upset and why I was so upset. Is when it's about being fair, and we all know life's not fair, but just be honest and true and just to what you're doing. And if you're gonna be calling a game a certain way, call it a certain way. That's it. And when my team, regardless, I'm the first to say if they're not working hard. I'm the first to say that, there's this call, we deserved it. We didn't work hard enough for it, or we did this. I'm the first to say that. But I'm also gonna be the first to be there and defend my team. And when a call like that happens and it's not called,
Yeah.
and then the result is what it was, us losing in overtime, that doesn't sit well with me, because I feel our team deserved better fate for that, and that's where my passion comes out.
Yeah.
It's passion. It's for the team.
And to double down on what you're saying, and you can tell me right or wrong, like, listen, at the end of the day, that game, it was, I don't know if I want to use the term heavily officiated. I think we have to walk a line here. I will say this. We realized very early a tone was set that said, hey, I'm going to call everything I see by the book, and there are going to be penalties. And as a result, there were. Now, again, you tell me if I'm right or wrong here. I think through 60 minutes, at the end of the day, you can't argue. Like, you told us this. You established this tone early. I agree with the calls you've made. You've also made a good handful of calls on them. So I will not argue that. But then in overtime, okay, once again, you made a call that was like, it's an overtime on Louis. All right, you gave it back to us. You gave another call away. I think Pistol drew one. But then from there, all of a sudden out of nowhere, the game and the tone of the game completely changed. And now no more calls were being made. Like, is this fair to say? Like, you're okay with the first 60 minutes because that tone had been set and that standard had been held within there? It's just, the question is, why did you go away from it?
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, the standard that was set for me, first of all, I felt it was a little bit too much. I mean, there was 8 penalties called against us, and 5 of them were holding.
Yeah.
So, holding, 5 holding, tripping, interference, and a high stick. So, with that being said, compared to their 4.5 penalties, or if you want to call it that, now we get into overtime, and Louis gets hauled down from behind, like, egregiously.
Yeah.
And there's no call whatsoever.
Yeah.
And in turn, it goes back down the ice, and then they score game over in overtime. After we just killed a penalty in overtime, that you called Louis for a penalty.
Yeah.
You know, and so, regardless, if you're going to hold a standard, you're going to create a standard, then stick to it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all it is. And I'm not going to argue with it. But when that happens, and then obviously the end result was, then I was not a happy camper.
Fans don't really know this part. Can you explain or elaborate on maybe some of the additional processes that you are able to do following a game? I don't mean run after the official. I mean, I thought you were Matt Cairns there for a second, but
I almost said that too.
No comment. We see Joe Ernst here a lot, who oversees officials. Is there a scenario where you're allowed to make a phone call to him? If he's in the arena, can you have a conversation with him following a game? What are the available options to you, if any, as a head coach in this league?
If there's usually there's an officiating an official that's here. There wasn't one last night, but usually when something like that has happened, there's a person we're supposed to call. I know Joe's usually down, but Joe's not the guy to call. It's somebody else, and it's not usually a call directly after a game because you got to kind of give it a grace period, and then you can address it the next day. But the problem with it is as you know, what's going to change? I mean, you know, what's really going to change? I mean, they're not going to come back and send us an email. Hey, that's right. Sorry, guys. You know, we made a call yesterday. It was a bad call. Yeah. You know, hey, we're going to change it now. So we're going to replay that 2 minutes left in the game, or we're going to replay that, you know, or we're going to take away that goal, or
just going to say, sorry, hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, listen, I think, again, we had pre-scheduled to have this conversation, and then, of course, you know, as fate would have it, it just happens to come now the day after a really controversial decision. But, I mean, I really wanted to talk to you mainly because, aside from that, it's been a very successful season. I mean, you guys so far, though, sure, there's been the first valley, if you want to call it that, where there's been some struggling here the last couple of weeks, but ultimately this is the great part about having such a strong start and being one of the front runners, is because I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I think you don't want to lose. I get that. But you were able to afford some of the losses you've had, whereas other teams were not. Like, if Fort Wayne right now, I'm just calling it for what it is, like if they lose 4 or 5 in a row right now, they are in deep you know what. You guys are okay. You guys should be able to stay afloat. I mean, that's got to at least mean something to you.
No, it does. I mean, listen, I thought our guys, we came out of the gates at the beginning of the season well and worked hard, and you know, everybody was on board and buying into the system what it should be. The problem with success comes identity issues, because now when teams have success, sometimes they forget what's the identity that got them to where they had success. So sometimes just reeling that, and it's like anything in life. People get better at something, and all of a sudden they think they're more than what they should be, or more than what really complements the team itself. But overall, we're in a good spot. I'm not worried. I'm not upset. But I am competitive.
Yeah.
I am competitive, and we want to create a winning culture here. We have a winning culture in this organization, and it's about upholding that winning culture. And when there's things that happen that contradict it, that's where I have my issues. And I just want to make sure that we stick to that culture, stick to that winning culture and winning ways. The fans here, listen, they go out there, they work hard for their money to come watch us play.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that when as hard as they work for their money to come watch us play, and as hard as they work for their money to buy the specialty jerseys to support our fans, our players, and everything, that we give them that and more on the ice. We give them that effort. Where it's not about fans coming here and thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to come to a hockey game today, but I'm only going to pay half price. I don't want to pay the full price. Yeah. Well, it's just like the players. Like, well, you can't go on the ice and play half-ass. You got to be able to go out there and you lay it out in line every day, because it's not necessarily about the fans. It's about your career. It's about you.
Right.
You want to make it in life, and the way you practice, the way you play is going to dictate your future.
Yeah.
Your future earnings and your future way of living.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think it goes, and I don't know how much of an effect it has at this level, and I'm just speaking that genuinely as in, like, I do not know the answer to this, but, like, how many times have you seen major league teams, NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB, where a team has a winning culture and then they get away from it, or then they enter kind of a tough part in the organization? Next thing you know, fans stop coming. And I mean, that is a realistic thing. Like, at the end of the day, right now, we're one, at the time of this recording, hopefully it reverses some as we've got some home games before this airs, but we're 1-4-2 on home ice to start 2023. And I think to what you're saying is, like, hey, these fans are paying good money, and these players bear the responsibility that, hey, if I'm a fan and I'm working my ass off to have the money to come out and pay for parking, and this is the other thing, pay for parking, pay for tickets, pay for food, pay for drinks, pay for a souvenir if my kid's going. And next thing you know, I'm spending maybe $100 or so, and you're going to give me that effort. Why should I do that? And next thing you know, fans start leaving. I don't think we're really at that point, but I think that's kind of what you're saying, right? Is like that hypothetically in a look at Iowa, right? Like, I'm not trying to call out teams. I'm just saying for what it is. Like, when you have a really struggling hockey club, is it a coincidence that a lot of fans aren't coming to that arena?
Well, again, everything's correlation, right? Everything goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you don't want to get to that point. I don't think we're not at that point.
No.
I mean, our sales team is out there just, working the pavement and getting if you want to say, butts in the seats. And the fans enjoy our hockey. We have loyal fans. We have great fans. We have a lot of great promotional things that go on here that's great for family and fun. It's a great, if you want to say, it's a great product. Yeah. But we want to keep it a great product. We want to keep it high quality. And that starts with character, and that starts with work ethic. And those are things that to me are non-negotiable. To be a high quality person and to be a person of character, those are things that all go hand in hand, and that's the things that lead to success. Those are key elements, I think, in a formula for success. And then with those being said, then you have habits, good work ethic. And again, when you have all those and you find that perfect, symmetry of everything, I mean, the results will speak for itself. So, again, it's not about being perfect, because again, if these guys are perfect, if we were all perfect, I mean, these guys would be in the NHL right now, and we'd all be probably in different positions in life. But we're out here how to work hard, and if you're not going to learn here now, you're definitely not going to learn if you ever get a chance to move up.
This is a good segue. Well, I want to talk about some fun things. I need to see a smile on your face, because right now I know it's understandably a little frustration, a lot of frustration. But what you did just say there is probably a good segue into another conversation. And I think it's a tough one to have with players, but we have talked about this behind closed doors. How challenging is it to be a coach in the ECHL, where guys don't want to be in this league? Like, guys don't want this to be their ceiling, right? They want to do what I want to do, what you want to do as a head coach, what you wanted to do as a player. Everybody is here to get to the next level. But when you talk about work ethic, it's what you do here that can get you there. But at the end of the day, like I gave a silly example. Last night when you and I were talking about like. I was messing around on the ice and you showed me how to do a slap shot just like that. Like you were just able, it was a clear explanation. I understood what you were telling me. And now moving forward, I know how to do it. So, okay, simple enough. Thank you for that, by the way. I'm sure to use that in a men's league here at some point.
Yeah, no problem. I'll send you my bill.
Yeah, no, I'm still going to be using your one stick that you gave me.
There you go.
I'm hiding it so you don't break it like
I found it though.
No, I need that one. This is really good. But like, no matter what you do, if you were to sit there and be like, you know what, Mossy, like I'm going to put you in the best shape of your life. As awesome as that would be, and I probably need it, I still am not. It's not like you're going to be able to say, I'm going to get you into the ECHL. Like, my mind cannot think at this level, no matter how good you train me. So I bring it back to you coaching pro hockey players now that want to make it to the NHL. How challenging is it when the reality is some guys, we don't know who, and they may not know who they are. But some players have hit their ceiling because you're trying to coach and teach somebody something that actually physically, mentally cannot be processed.
That's a struggle in everything. And, you know, you talk about the limitations of them being able to process it. And do they know that they can't limit it or they're limited in processing it? Do they know they can't do it? Some maybe not. But my job is not to make sure that they know that. My job is to make sure that they know that they have the ability to change that. They have the ability to get better. They have the ability to live out their dream and give them the blueprint on how to do it. Yeah. Now, again, I can't walk in their shoes, but I can definitely show them the path to do it. And then it becomes them. It's their willingness to do it. You could tell a player right now, hey, if you do A, B, C, and D religiously every day for the next 3 years, you will make over $1 million a year in the next 3 years. Everybody will say yes right now. It's very easy to say yes, but it's even harder to do it consistently. Yeah. And when I say consistently, you could probably do it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year, maybe a year and a half. But somewhere in that time frame, there's going to be breaks in that regimen, in that regime. What are you doing? The habits come in. Your old habits creep back in. So it's about forming those good habits, those good development habits. But again, it's tough. It's hard because everybody wants to see the instant gratification. Everyone wants to see what's going to happen in the short term, and no one wants to see the long term. Because to see the long term, you really have to look far. But there's so much that goes in that path, and nobody wants to really dive down and look at that. They want to overlook it, and they want to skip those steps. So just being able to understand and trying to work with the players to understand that and find out how to get through to them, because everyone's different. Everybody's different. I could say one thing to one player, I have to say something totally different to another. You know, I have to communicate with this way, find a way to connect with one player and connecting with another player differently. So there's a lot to go. There's a lot that goes with it. The coaching part, like they always talk about, is I think more the easier part of the job, but managing emotions, managing players, and managing their expectations versus the team's expectations is the hardest job.
Yeah. I was thinking like that, what you just said there, I was going to ask, it's like, are you more of a head coach or are you really more of a manager? Because I feel like in my head, I think you're more of a manager than anything.
I think in the world of hockey, there's every head coach wears different hats, but there's always different types of head coaches. Like there's ones that are people person. Because again, in every sport, we're in the people business.
Yep.
You know, the person and the sport are not mutually exclusive. Like we're in that business where we have to manage that person to make them a good player, but make sure that they're a great person. Yep. But then there's coaches that don't know how to manage that part and just are more of the X and O's type and try to get the best out of players just by, kind of ramming systems down their throat all the time and expect them to know it. But the philosophy is it's kind of hard for players to want to execute systems. One, if they can't comprehend it, that's one aspect of looking at it. But two, it's also hard for them to do systems if they can't do the necessary skills that are required to be effective in a system. So it's about finding the difference and finding out which player needs what, and then finding the time to put a time to figure out how we can make that player a better person, more efficient in what they do.
Yeah, limitations. You used that word earlier. That's such a challenge, I think, for everybody in any walk of life, to be fair, right? I mean, we're not just talking about hockey and not just sports. That's an evergreen word. I want to try and, I guess I don't have a really good pivot point here. I want to try and transition into a couple of things. We were talking about our crowds here and how good they've been. Take me back to your playing days, like outside of Cincinnati, outside of the Mighty Ducks and your playing days. I know Dayton, Flint. Were there any spots that were just like rocking, or like was minor league hockey? I think was pretty different back when you were playing, right? Like everywhere was.
It was wild. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's a lot of places. I mean, when I first started playing pro, I was in Utica. I was in Utica, and it was wild. Just nights there where it was like just packed, and going to Flint, the same thing. And there used to be standing room only in Flint, and every night it was something crazy. Then we used to have Quad City was in our league back then, and they would get 10,000 fans a game, and they were like on top of you. Like I had people throwing stuff at us. It was crazy. Going to the East Coast League. I mean, you see how fans are in Toledo right now, and they get a lot of fans in Toledo, and it's crazy. But the old arena they used to play at. And imagine getting almost the same amount of fans in the older barn, which is smaller, and they had a Zamboni that had like a chain thing that would pull the snow into the bucket. Fans would pretty much hang over the glass. Back in the day, they would smoke in the lobby, and the smoke would come into the dressing room. You look at the bench. Like we go to our dressing room. We jump up off the ice and walk upstairs, and then walk downstairs. And the same stairs we're walking up is the aisle of the stands. So we're walking by the fans, going up the stairs and walking down by the snack bar into our dressing room.
What do they have to block you guys off?
Nothing. And,
okay.
And I literally mean nothing. I mean,
okay.
I would sit on the bench, the end of the bench in Toledo when I was playing against them, and the bench would end, and there would be a seat beside me and another seat, and they just kept, and I'd look over, sitting beside me, and there's somebody sitting there eating popcorn, watching the game. Like within, like right there, like I could reach in, grab some popcorn and eat it.
Have you ever done that? Is that a yes?
What are you talking about? But yeah, those are the wild days. I mean, but that was when hockey was, that's what hockey was back then.
Yeah.
I'd go out there and I'd fight every night. Yeah. Fans would yell at you. They'd love you. They'd love to hate you. I mean, funny moments happen. Again, Toledo was always a spot there, but I think I told you a story one day. I just finished fighting I think it was Ken Tasker I fought in Toledo, and then the fans were all like booing me because he got beat up. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I beat up your guy, whatever. See you later. And I'm waving at the fans, and I'm walking up the stairs, and get to the top of the stairs, and I'm about to go down, and I slipped and went. The fans went crazy.
They were howling, I bet.
Oh, yeah, the fans went crazy, and, but memories. Mm-hmm. Memories, so it was good.
Is that considered to you, it's like got to be the golden era of hockey? I mean, you know, and I think some fans here that listen to this will know, I was in Peoria prior to here, and they always told me about, the 90s and the 80s, and, it was just, this place was packed, and I came into it, and it was like, it never got to that in the era that I was there for. So, like, is that the golden era? Golden era of, here's a good one. Is it the golden era of hockey? Because keep in mind, Gretzky, 90s, Messier, Yager, Lemieux, Lindros. Is that era the golden era of hockey, or is it the golden era of minor league hockey?
It was a golden era of minor league hockey, I think I would say. It was aggressive before that, but it continued. And players just got better.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it was. And players got better each year as it went on, and this fighting kind of just faded out. Slowly got it faded out. And to today's game, where I guess how different it is, I guess for me, I think when I remember one year, by Christmas time, I had over 226 penalty minutes. Okay. By Christmas.
Are most of those penalty minutes fights?
Yes.
So if you had to guess, unless you know the number, what would you say would be like the most amount of fights you would have had in a single season?
Probably 30.
Wow. You alone,
Yeah.
30.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of teams that don't even have 30 anymore. A lot of teams. It's just sorry.
Sorry.
It's such a different world when you talk about the fans and how close you guys were. I mean, the popcorn that I guess you probably did eat at least one time, but that's cool. I mean, hopefully a fan was kind enough to offer it
Oh
to
yeah,
you.
they loved it.
But like, is there any? I guess that one, you falling down the steps. Are you a little rose in the face?
Oh yeah,
there?
I just
like, oh, no.
It's funny. After we're down, I jumped up quick and with the hands up. Oh, I landed.
Yeah.
It was a clean dismount, and
You're doing your best to like not look at any fans on the way back up.
Just kept my eyes straight. Yep.
Making sure.
Yeah.
Are there any other like wild stories that stand out? Obviously, I'm sure there's a bunch of like, again, tell all podcasts. There's probably a ton of jackasses out there that, are not doing what they should do. But it's funny when like guys complain now about fans, and there are guys that do it. You see guys complaining like, oh, these guys suck and F you and all this. And I'm thinking like, have you heard this guy's stories? Because you see it on the bench, fans pounding on the glass and stuff. I assume the way fans act now doesn't hold a candle to your playing days.
No, not at all. I mean, there's so many arenas that we went into, like I said, Quad City, where else? Flint, Thunder Bay, when they had a team back in those old United League, Colonial League days. Those were aggressive.
Is that Ontario?
Thunder Bay's in Ontario, yeah.
Okay.
Even in the American League, in certain places as well too. You'd have fans that were hanging over the glass, yelling at you, screaming, and banging on the glass. Even when I played in Wheeling, it was the same thing. Mm-hmm. Just going crazy. Fans are going crazy, and I saw fans banging on the glass to a certain point where them and the glass fell out onto the ice. And there's times where, and again, go back to talk about Toledo since it's more familiar with our fans, but their old arena, there's fans that would hang over the glass and yell at guys as they skated by in warm up, telling them, "I'll kill you, come meet you in the parking lot behind the Zamboni," and like, oh yeah, and guys would be coming back and they'd be like, "Oh my God, like what's going on? They said they wanted to kill us," and it's funny as it is, but they respected guys that were true to the game of hockey, meaning the tough guys that were and they started that way with me, and they saw it didn't really faze me.
Yeah.
And I don't really care, to be honest with you. That stuff doesn't faze me at all. But that back then to me it was, I'll fight you here, I'll fight you there, wherever you want to fight.
Has there ever been a story or a worry from a teammate of yours that like, hey, that fan that's saying they're going to kill me, like, is there any chance that they're actually going to meet me in the parking lot? Like, were there ever fans, if you're on like getting on the iron lung after the game, like, would fans ever know where the road team's bus was?
They would know. Everyone would know. You see it. You see where it is. But I always carried myself a certain way. And I didn't put myself in a situation, especially off the ice, that would give anybody a reason to even want to do that with me. And there's players that have gone up before that's the role they played on the ice, and they always wanted everybody out in the world to think that they're the same guy.
Yeah.
And I don't need to prove that to anybody. And it's about just carrying yourself with that most respect and carrying yourself proper. And, you got to make people have to respect you that way.
Yeah. Well, the game's changed, but like the culturally, like customs have kind of changed. Like nobody's smoking a cigarette now indoors, but you're talking about the breathing back then. But like, what about the guys? How many guys would like just light a Marlboro up or something after a game or in between periods? Did players do that?
When I played back in the day, not really did it, but my first year pro, I remember I went to camp and it was in between periods, and then the goalie had called me in because he saw that I wasn't really playing the way I know I could. He knows I could play, and rightfully so. I mean, I don't think I really wanted to be where I was. And
you say the goalie?
Yeah, goalie, or our goalie on the team at the time.
Called you in?
Yeah, into the other dressing room because he just wanted to talk to me. So I'm like, okay. So I go over and I walk out of our dressing room, across the hall, into the other dressing room, and I walk in, and he's standing there, leaned up against the stall. So what's going on here is like, I'm seeing that you're, and I'm like, is he smoking a cigarette in the? Like, I was floored. I was like, this can't be real life right now. But it was a thing. That's what they used to do, right? So, same way they used to smoke in arenas.
Well, I guess fans could.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I said, it was in Toledo, and we're in our dressing room, and fans are standing outside the dressing room at the old barn, which is snack bars right there, and they're smoking, and the smoke is coming through the ceiling and into the dressing room.
What a smell.
Just guys.
And I
are,
imagine like
some
a
of the older
mass
guys,
of it.
all the older guys are just standing up, just trying to take a quick little one
Trying to
before
get the puffs. Short shift.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I know we're probably going to be nearing the end of our conversation here, and I know you're really busy, and I want to make sure that we let you go. I love having the time with you. One thing I do want to talk about, and maybe by the time this airs, something else may air. If not, it's going to air. Your boy Kevin Weeks sounds like he may be doing something in Kalamazoo with us. And I won't go into all that, but I will say this. Anybody that watches NHL Network, like Kevin Weeks makes a point to give you shout-outs when he can. You guys have a brotherhood, a bond that is so strong. And it's great to see because, he's doing his thing. He went on, goaltender for the New Jersey Devils, played in the NHL. Now he's like the face of like analysts for the National Hockey League, whether it be on TNT or TSN or NHL Network. But I see you guys, like, you're still texting him all the time. Like, tell me that story. Like, when did you first meet him? Is he one of the day ones? I mean, you guys have known each other for a long, long time.
We grew up in the same neighborhood in Toronto, and our parents obviously knew each other actually before we actually got to really get close to each other. And again, coming through hockey, there's not many black faces that were really playing back then. And for us to finally connect when we were 8, 9, to finally get connected, and then the relationship just kept building from there. And then it was only like a year or two into us getting close to each other that we realized our parents knew each other. So,
yeah, okay, so sorry to explain that, because I believe you told me that when you started hockey, it was your mom just told you, hey, here's skates, you're going to go and you're going to play today.
Yeah, pretty much. She took me to learn to skate at St. Mike's Arena, downtown Toronto. And because I lived down in St. Clair, Bathurst area. And Kevin and his parents lived down in the same place down there in St. Clair as well, too. So our parents would go to the same grocery stores and they would run into each other all the time. So, as we progress in hockey and the past kind of connected us back to each other, and it just kind of just stuck to each other, and we grew, and it just kept growing. The bond kept growing more and more. And being on the same path is surrounding yourself around people with the like mindset. He's always kept me grounded and kept me on track to keep myself around the same people, the same like mindset. He was an unbelievable goaltender as a kid coming up. He was like one of the highly touted goalies coming out of Toronto, and rightfully so. His work ethic and his preparation were next level. He took things to a whole new level of it. And the fact that he continued that all the way through minor hockey, right to junior hockey, and right to pro, it's a testament to what he's about and how he likes to mold his life and craft himself after. And again, I was the same way. I wanted to be that way. I may not have had the luxuries of, getting the accolades as he did, that he worked so hard for. I was never drafted. Everything was, to me, I had to overprove myself to get to where I had to get to. And, he was with me every step of the way, along the way, and encouraging me and we bounced ideas off me to the point where I played in the OHL. He was in the OHL. I made it there, and we would talk to each other because we're both going through similar types of situations per se on each team, and even in pro, whatever levels I was at, I was dealing with stuff, and to find out that he was dealing with the same things similar at the NHL level. So he's telling me how to handle things on my end, and the advice I was giving him was actually good advice for him to handle things at that end, at that level. So again, we're day ones, and it's something I would always, my phone rings and it's him, I'm picking up. I'm picking up right away, and it's not without a doubt, without a question. And he's worked so hard to where he's gotten to today, playing, putting in the years of playing, the things he's gone through. Like, it hasn't been easy. And it's as much as everyone thinks life in the NHL it's all glory. It's not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of opportunity that they want you to quit the game. And he's lasted through it. The duration of his career has been amazing. And then from there to transition right into into being a color analyst and a broadcaster. It's been amazing for him. The late nights going to the West Coast, working at Hockey Night in Canada, calling those games. Flying from Toronto all the way up to Edmonton and Calgary and all these places, and then onto the NHL Network, and now with ESPN and growing and growing. His brand is growing, and for him to understand what I've gone through, he understands. He was with me every step of the way, so he knows that. Like I said to you at the beginning of this whole conversation we just had here, is I've always had to overprove myself to everybody to get an opportunity to where I am today, and it's not going to stop. And it's funny, we had this conversation last night, you and I. It's like, I always know I have to prove myself, and I have to overprove myself, and I'm my harshest critic. And I'm not going to sit back and let anything deter my work ethic, deter my passion. And like I said, I'm here for the players. I'm here for their success, and their success is my success, and he knows that. So for somebody to truly understand me and be able to truly speak from the heart, I mean, I can't thank him enough. And that's what it's all about. The way I speak about him is the way he speaks about me.
When this interview airing in February, of course, Black History Month, and trying to grow the game and erase the color barrier, I think in our sport is important. So when you mentioned your conversations with Weeksy and how you would help one another going through similar things in hockey, because it was that time, because it was that era, which even though we're still going with these problems today, I think it was a little worse then. Are we talking to each other about dealing with racism in the game? Are we talking about dealing with things people are saying to you? Is it stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, he dealt with a lot of racism as well too, like we all did, especially back in the day. And it's great that the game of hockey is trying to do a lot to change it now. But the things we had to deal with, and again, it's not the league's faults. The league is doing what they do to try to make it an inclusive environment for everybody. But when you get the odd individual who's out there and, if you want to say, goes off key and does what he wants to do, the league has to step in and try to bring everything back in order. And it's tough because we're the players, we're the people that are on the receiving end of it. Yeah. So how do we deal with it? How do we cope with it? And who's going to understand what it's like? I've gone through many issues through my playing career. Not so much in my coaching career, but in my playing career I have, and so is he. So for him to call me when things are going on and we can talk it out, and he can use me as a sounding board. I can help him deal with it and cope it. Like those are the things that work when you get in those situations. I mean, Jalen Smerek on our team went through that last year.
Yep, in Ukraine.
Yeah, and my phone rang in the middle of the night, and he was very upset, and I had to talk to him about the whole situation and let him know that everything's okay. It's not your fault. People are just the way they are, and the league, if they want to do anything about it, but I mean those things are out of your control, unfortunately. But just stay true to who you are, but again, that's what we're there for, as people, as friends, and again, that's what I mean when, and again, it wasn't only just racial stuff that Kevin had to deal with, like political stuff too. And political stuff happened at every level. Mm-hmm. Happens at this level, happens in the NHL. So it is what it is. But again, for people and players to have to deal with it, a lot of them haven't been through the situations before or are new to the situation. So they need that release or that outlet.
We've seen players, the one in Ukraine that did it to Smerek, albeit I think everybody would agree it was a handful of games for a suspension or something, like 2-3 games maybe.
Right.
Not much done there, but we have seen some level of reprimanding on players who act out in that way. When you played, did a player get suspended? Like if somebody called you a gesture, did you go to someone and did anything get done?
Yeah, it did happen. And, fortunately at that point in time when it did happen, so there's things that happen and there's nobody apparently to hear it, right? That's always the case. But there was an incident that happened and the linesman did hear it. And their whole team heard it. My whole team heard it. And that was one of the incidents I told you about where that was the last time I was that mad.
Yeah.
And the crazy part about it is that I think my team was more mad than me.
Is this in Roanoke?
That is correct.
Roanoke, Virginia. I remember you telling me this story.
That's correct. And and it got to the point where, yeah, the player got suspended, but the suspension that the player got at that time was he wasn't allowed to play against us whenever we played again.
That was the suspension?
And yeah, I think there might have been a little bit more to it. I can't remember the detail, but that was a part of the suspension. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, at that point in time, and again, and that was pretty much about it.
I feel like in a way the league just protected him.
Well, listen, I don't know what the outcome was, and I'm not going to start pointing fingers about it. But again, everyone's going through that learning process. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's things are happening in the league, and as of late, as everything that we've seen happen, and they're just finding ways right now to figure out how we can address this and not make this a common theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then that happened, I was not happy, and that definitely with the the outcome of the disciplinary action, to me that wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everyone's going to get what's coming to them. So it is what it is. The league, and I think maybe it was new to the league too, and how to deal with it. So you can't fault a lot of people, but when you learn from these things, and you want to make sure that you get better. And that's the whole thing about mistakes, is about learning from them. If it's the person that committed the mistakes, or how to handle this mistake. You're going to learn from them, and you want to get better every time.
The last thing I'll ask before we let you get going here is I kind of want to bring it all full circle, and I like to close these on as positive of marks as we can. So when I say full circle, at the beginning of this, we're kind of talking about a disappointing Wednesday night game. It was followed by myself, Chad, you, sitting in your office for at least over an hour. We didn't get out of the arena until after 1. The game ended around 10:30, 10:45. I want to talk about the hockey community and the people that you let in, right? Your community of hockey people on a positive note, because nights like last night are frustrating. It helps, though, healing, venting, whatever, when you have people to go to. It helps that you have a guy like Kevin Weeks who is a phone call away. It helps that a guy like Jalen Smerrick, who was countries away, overseas, was able to dial you, and it didn't matter what time of the night it was here in Eastern time in the United States, you were able to pick up that phone. And it helps that whenever you go into another arena, look, obviously you want to beat the heck out of Toledo and Fort Wayne and your Wheelings of the world, but even I know you, myself, players on our team can go over and usually find at least one person in that arena that you can shake hands with and embrace and shoot the breeze with, because that community is so strong. And people talk about it. Hockey's a small community, and it's one of those things where everybody somehow finds a way to know everybody in this sport. But it's so important, right? Think about all the sacrifice that we put into this. So I want to ask you, how important is it, not only because it's Black History Month, not only because of the challenges you face as a head coach and managing and coaching and wearing hats, how important is it to have positive community, a positive hockey community, a positive support system to help bring that smile back to your face?
I think that's the most important. I had the same conversation with our players before they went home for Christmas. And it's about going home, enjoying your family time, enjoying your friends, your true friends, the friends that know you from back home. And it's not about knowing the friends or people that you meet while you're playing hockey, because you're going to meet the people, you're going to meet some people, you'll know them, I get it. But you're going back to see your friends and your family who knew you before you were a Cincinnati Cyclone, who knew you before you were a pro hockey player. And those are the memories, the guys that you created memories with, the friends you created memories with, and your family that knows you for who you are and not what you are. And I think those are the most valuable people, because if you surrounded yourself around the right people, those are the ones that keep you grounded. And that's, for me, was always key, because I always had my small group of friends who I always talked to on a regular basis while I played hockey. And people used to talk to me all the time, like, you always have your phone on you, you're always on your phone. Because I'm talking to my friends back home, because they're the ones that keep me grounded. They're the ones that I know I can talk to, trust, and they're going to believe in me, and they're going to talk to me, and they're going to give me they're not going to tell me what I want to hear, but they're going to be there truthfully for me, for what's best for me. And that's what you want, and you want those people. And that's why I think surrounding yourself, like I said to you earlier, around people of like mindset, but around true, genuine people, that's, I think, one of the most important attributes and qualities to have.
I think everybody can attest to that, right? So let's end this podcast here with Coach Payne. Painter, I hope next time we talk to you, it's after a win. We'll see if we can time it out, or in the summer, whatever. There's plenty of other fun things that we can talk about. But as always, man, I appreciate your time, and let's keep rolling here this season.
Yeah, no, we'll keep rolling, have some fun, and next time we talk about share some of the life stories on the road.
Some.
Some.
Very few.
Very few.
Just one. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Two for Chirping.